Well, the last people are coming in. Probably need to search for a few more chairs, but that's all right. Welcome everyone, kia ora koutou. My name is Lisa, I'm the Geopark coordinator for the Waitaki Valley Geopark. It's lovely to have you all here today for our talk with Henry Gard about the Waitaki Valley, a paleontologist paradise. So Henry Gard is from GNS, a senior laboratory and collection technician, coming from Wellington today, so we are very lucky to have you here with us today. Thank you so much. But he's grown up in Duntroon, where we know are a lot of the limestone fossils that we know about today. So I'm very excited to introduce Henry to you and learn more about that part for our geopark. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes, Waitaki Valley, a paleontologist's paradise. So today I'm going to just talk about a little bit more about just myself and my interest and how I got interested in geology and paleontology and what I do at GNS and some of the studies I did at university, and then some of the importance of these, the Waitaki region in the construction of the timescale, which you all have a copy probably on your chair, and some of the examples of the fossils from Geopark, the wider Geopark, and then we'll go through a video and then do some Waitaki Valley fossils. And then why I think it's paleontologist paradise at the very end. So, here we are. So, old pictures. This is on the left, so up the top, me and my brother at the Elephant Rocks. Visited there as a kid, and they used to do festivals there. Some of you may remember, and I think that's 2001 and maybe a 1990s one where they had sort of a picnic and music, and I thought it's a pretty good thing. I'm not sure if the community does that anymore, but yeah, it'd be quite a nice thing to get going again. And then we have Moana boulders, so the concretions on the beach at Moana, and the clay cliffs as well. And then, slightly older now, but I used to collect rattling rocks, so these brown rocks here, and they're made from a mineral called limonite, this one here, and it rattles. You can maybe be able to hear that. And so it's formed by, there's probably another limonite kind of ring in here that's formed and then been eroded, all the sand would have eroded out and then mineralised over it to make that rattle, so it can't stand out of there. And I also went to some exhibits for dinosaurs, so that's me, the front of it's not a Stegosaurus, but I'm not really into dinosaurs anymore, so I couldn't tell you what it is, but there we go. And I also went to Vanished World Centre when it was opening as well, because I bought in this fossil here, which is this one, which gives some weight of that, and I wanted to know what it was, so I brought it to the Vanished World Centre, and they said, oh, we'll wait until there's a paleontologist to come in and tell you what it is, and also had a bit of bone as well from a hacker quarry, so I brought this one in, and a bit of bone, and there was a paleontologist there by the name of Andrew Grebnev from the University of Otago geology department, and the first one, so this specimen here, he said, he took me up to a cabinet and said, oh well, this looks very much like what's called a heart urchin, so it's a spatangoid, so it's an echinoderm, like a sea urchin, and it's sort of named heart urchin because you can see there's sort of a little indentation here, and it would have been quite a circular thing in life, so it gets its name there. And of course I was a bit shy at the time, so actually when I showed him the whalebone from Hacker, he said, oh yeah, this is good, it's probably from a jaw or a bit of rib from a fossil whale, but these are actually not from the same locality, but he wrote Hacker on it anyway. So it says Hacker, the 11th of November 2007, when it was on there. And we'll move swiftly along. So later on I studied a Bachelor of Science, and I started off with zoology and then went to geology. And then after that, in postgraduate studies, I did a Bachelor of Science with Honours on the Southland, West Otago area, in the Pomahaka River, actually, so near Tapanui. And in there you see a fossil estuarine deposit, so mudstones and sandstones, and actually some coal. So this here is a big bit of coal in the river, and it has amber in it as well. And so I was interested in the paleoecology, so the whole past ecosystem, particular interest in fossil molluscs. So there's one up there that it's probably one of my favourites, and it's the Clython pomahakaensis, it's called, because it was found in Pomahaka and described there. And it still has this fantastic stripy colour after it's probably 25 million years old. It looks like it was collected yesterday from the sea. Yeah, so amazing. And that particular one's quite small. They get a little bit bigger than that. You see 2mm scale there. And I also found, with one of my colleagues sitting there, Marcus Richards, a bit of a fragment of a turtle bone on a wave cut, river cut beach there with some fossil trees, so tree stumps there as well. And it's from the lower, turtles don't really have ribs, but they have like these sort of plates that fuse together, and so it's from sort of maybe the lower part of it there, and you can see it fuses here, along here. And then so these things sort of tell us that it was quite a warmer climate there, a warmer sea, because Clython now, it's still living today, not this species but the genus, and it's found in the Philippines. So it's quite a tropical thing. And then sea turtles, of course, they like a bit warm water as well. So the fieldwork, of course, was lots of wading in the river actually, because that's where most of the rocks were to have a look at. And then I went on to do a master's after that, and I was still interested in the Southland region. And so I looked at that formation, the Pomahaka Formation. There's also a formation or a geological unit above that of a slightly younger age, and I was interested again in the paleoecology of it. And so I looked at 13 sites, all these little dots here on this map, the red dots. I was also interested in Paleo Geography, which is basically knowing where land was and where sea was around that time, and how the geography was. They're all very shallow marine deposits again, so sort of beaches or just slightly offshore deposits, and so around Gore. And these are some of the things I found. First of all, this is the Paleo Geographic map I made. So again, you have these red dots, and from the fossils that were found there, I inferred that land was either really close to where that was formed or really far away. And so you can kind of draw this dotted line. The green here is the land, and the blue is the sea, and then there's darker blue up the very top. We have some just amazing fossils. There's some, on the top left, some fossil oysters that are still attached to the rock that they were buried in a long time ago. And this was the Duntroonian stage. And so if you look on your little handout, and there's a orange area. And that's the light orange, you'll see a Duntroonian there. Oh yeah, sorry, take a few, pass it around if you have that. And the other cool things you find there, this is a fossil scallop. The Athlopeton is quite large there, you can see that's 10 centimetres, that boulder there. So, pretty amazing stuff. And then there's, this is quite interesting, it's a little bivalve that you might find them along the coast here actually, not this particular genus, but they bore into rocks on the coast. So again, this is saying that it's really pretty much on a beach in a cliff or something. And then you have this worn shell up here, saying that it's probably been, you know, on the beach you find lots of worn shells, and it's been a lot of active stuff and been eroded a lot. And also some big vertebrate fossils, or there's, well, I don't think it's terribly big actually, but there's a little penguin toe bone there on the right, that bone. And on the left of that one, it's a fish tooth. So yeah, some very interesting stuff. And yeah, so after that, I got a job at GNS Science. And yeah, as Lisa already said, I work as a lab and collection technician there. And I published on 4 papers, you can see there, and I do a lot of different things in my role there. So I am the curator for the microfossil collection there. So this is all these boxes you can see of different rocks that they've extracted little tiny little fossils out of. Also go out in the field occasionally. So this is up in an alpine lake in I think it's Lake Mackay it's called, up in just above Wanaka, up in the hills. Yeah, so we are sediment coring there. So that's sort of an apparatus with a kind of a plunger on it, you can see, and there's a big pipe, and that pipe's full of the lake sediment. So the very top would be the top of what's just been deposited, and then the bottom would be older stuff. And we're doing that to look at lake health around New Zealand, as well as the ecology, effects of climate change and things like that. And I also work in the lab as a lab technician, so this is me preparing some microfossil samples, so it's just like washing sand in a tiny sieve there with some hot water. And then this is, so once we have these lake cores, we split it in half, and then we freeze it, and we use a bench drill to get little plugs out for them to study for DNA, to look at environmental DNA for time. Anyway, on to the fossils and oh, not yet, almost. So yeah, this is other place I've been. So Waitaki Bridge near Murchison, we were looking at collecting some of these rocks here for looking at some minerals in them to get some ages from them before COVID, and then more recently we went to Otawhero Inlet, which is just before the Tasman National Park, the Ōamaru Tasman National Park. Yeah, and so again we were coring a bit of a different setup. We had a pipe here that we'd bashed in with a sledgehammer and some wood, and then we had to dig it out and put an end cap on it and covered in mud. But anyway, and we also went along and collecting the surface of the sediment, because what we really want to know is how the sediment's moving around that estuary, and sort of modelling it and seeing what effects it has over time and things like that, because the locals are very concerned about that. They had a big cyclone there as well and things. And yes, so now we will go on to the importance of the Waitaki region and construction of the geological timescale. So when they were constructing, I guess, when they were looking at the timescale that they had, this is the international timescale, and when it was brought over to New Zealand, the geologists and paleontologists sort of realised that it didn't quite fit with what was happening in New Zealand, and some things were going extinct in the middle of these stages, international stages. And so they got together and looked at these things here. So these are all microfossils, like microzooplankton. And there's 2 different types. So up the very top, those ones that look like the little glass beads stuck together, they are what they call planktic foraminifera, so they float in the water column. And the more robust looking ones here would just live on the bottom of the seafloor. And they look at a whole lot of rocks and analyse them, extract all these fossils out, and then look at them under a microscope. And then once they've done that, they put them against the timescale and sort of work out when the species went extinct, and then when the species evolved. So I'll try and get this mouse working here. Here we go. So I've got, so these, you don't have to worry about these names here, but this line here, this black one, is a species. and it first appears here, and then goes extinct here. There's another one here which first appears here and keeps going above here, and then this one here extinct and first appears, so on and so forth. And then once you can start to line up these different, you can sort of draw a line between where one's extinct and one's come in. And then yeah, they start to build this new time scale, and one of the places they went was Waiatora Reserve, if some of you know it. So that's the type area for the Waitakian stage on your sheet. It's above the Duntroonian, so that pale orange there. And they sampled sort of all the way up that cliff in increments to narrow down the age. And then this is what some of the fossils look like at that site. It's really impressive. There's a 50-cent coin there for scale, and yeah, I recommend if any of you are up there, you should definitely go and have a look. It's fantastic. And yeah, so this is the new kind of time scale they came up with. That's based on all that work they did. And the really key thing, I guess, and why the Waitaki region is important is they've kind of named all these names on here are kind of local names. So the Waitakian for Waitaki Valley, and Duntroonian for Duntroon, and then Landon. Don't know if many of you know, but there's a small creek called Landon Creek just outside of Ōamaru that has a good section of rocks there that they studied. And Borton's, Borton's Pond would be something that you might know. And Bortonian, actually, the type is now the Moana Beach section. So yeah, very important in this timescale. And yeah, so now we'll go through some of the sites in the broader Geopark. So we have the Jackson's Paddock diatomite. And diatomite is made of tiny little organisms called diatoms. And it's absolutely packed full of them, and it's really, really diverse. And it's sort of an internationally renowned diatomite for the late Eocene age. And then this is just a quote here from someone from the USA saying that it's just amazing, basically. I'll let you read that in your own time. But yeah, so it's located, so we have Ōamaru, and then it's just outside of Ōamaru, basically as a paddock where you can see cows in it, and it's got some rocks exposed on the side there. And these are diatoms, and they're just heaps and heaps of different shapes and sizes, but really, really small, like 0.1 sort of millimeters in length or diameter. Yeah. And so now we'll move on to the Ōamaru Beach section here. So Ōamaru up top again, we're down the coast. Many of you probably know where Ōamaru Beach is. And here I found and described a species of mollusk called a scutus. It's the common name would be a shield shell you find on the beach, or they're called elephant slugs because they're quite big, ugly looking black slugs in life. And they actually, you don't usually see that shell there. It's usually covered like that picture there, so it's sort of an internal kind of skeleton setup. And yeah, so it was a new species. Got the formation up there if you're interested. Yeah, shallow marine. So these things are really, they live in really, really shallow water today, and so that's telling us that it probably was really shallow water there in the past when it formed. And yes, so I called it Scutus mirus, and that's basically, mirus Latin for kind of wonderful, because it's pretty wonderful to find one of these rare things in these kind of rocks here. And this particular specimen is housed in the National Museum of Te Papa in Wellington. And so another one, Shag Point. So it's really important late Cretaceous site, and it's good for vertebrate fossils, so that's animals with a backbone, and plants as well. And there's a map of it there, it's the bit there. And this is sort of what it kind of looks like. Spot the fossil in that picture, I guess, which is coming up here. So this is an Araucarian plant fossil. So take from that what you will. It's a plant, and first described in 1887. And it was found originally, there was a man walking along by the name of Gilbert van Reenen? Yes, Reenen. Gilbert van Reenen from Wanaka in March in 2013. And what he did is he broke open this rock and found this fantastic fossil, and donated it to the University of Otago. But then a month later, they were really interested in this, so they went back to the site and collected that other half there. And it's so important that it's been named a SIN type, and so that is meaning it's a set of type specimens of equal status. So when they describe a fossil, they have a specimen that they're describing it on. So this has just the same, if not of equal value, characteristics that the original description fossil would have. And also at Shag Point, we have a plesiosaur that was discovered, Kaifekia kaitiki. And the Kaifekia, so we have kai, food, and then fekia, squid, so inferring it's probably a squid eater. And it's a really massive fossil. It's currently in the Otago Museum. It's really spectacular. If you want to go, and I recommend you go and have a look. And again, it's late Cretaceous in Haumurian. Again, that's the green on this, if you're interested. Yeah, so just getting toward the end of the time of the dinosaurs. And it was in a massive concretion, so 6.5 meters, like a huge kind of Meraki boulder just on the beach there. And it took them, it was collected in 1983, and it took them pretty much a month, and they had to get it in tiny little bits and then prepare it and then put it all back together. So it was a lot of work, but yeah, really fantastic and complete specimen. And it also has a skull. So this is the skull. You can see the teeth along there, very fine teeth, and then there's that big eye socket there. So it's sort of got probably getting fast moving prey. It's probably was deeper in the water column as well, than because of the big eyes. And then we have a reconstruction of what it may have looked like, done by Chris Gaskin, and yeah, very kind of shortish neck too. And you can see he's even done this skeleton down the bottom. So yeah, fantastic stuff. And also at Shag Point, you can find Mosasaurus remains, so a big predatory lizard in the sea, in the ocean, and so collected by Professor Ewan Fordyce at the University of Otago. And yeah, you can see here, there's got teeth. So this is the skull here. It's quite a large thing. Yeah. And so now we'll have a little interlude. So I'm going to show a little movie from a company called Making Movies, from a TV series they did called Modern Dinosaurs, and it was screened here, called New Zealand Evolution Islands, I believe. And it's going to feature Ewan Fordyce, Sophie, John Williams, and myself, just excavating a fossil in the Hakataramia Valley. So I hope this is going to go. One moment. Let's turn this on. Sound. Oh, there we go.
The Waitaki region of the South Island is a...
Stop showing. One moment. Oh, that's strange.
Try there.
Yeah,
Try.
put it over it.
Try click on. Yeah.
Try that.
You'll have two screens.
Yeah, I will one so I can put it over.
Drag it across.
Oh, yeah, we were escaping.
Yeah. Yeah, actually that's true. I'll just go here. Escape. Oh,
There you go.
wait, where? That? Oh, hang on.
No, it keeps going on wrong.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Go. Sorry. Yeah.
Yep, so put it there. Positions.
Here we
Oh,
go.
this isn't.
Yeah, no.
This isn't a computer.
Yeah.
It's on there now. Maybe
it's
if
on
you
there
just
now.
go on
Good.
the. Yeah,
Is that working?
that's
Yes.
right.
Good.
Brilliant.
Good. Brilliant.
Sometimes it just helps to have somebody
Yeah.
sitting beside you.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Okay. Here we go.
Brilliant.
The Waitaki region of the South Island.
Can we dim the lights a little bit? It's probably hard to see a little bit. Is that possible?
Put your lights off.
Just a little,
Just a wee bit, yeah.
Be good. Yes.
Is a world-renowned fossil hunting location.
Questionable Waitaki Valley. Right.
25 million years ago, this area looked very different. Most of New Zealand had sunk beneath the ocean. Only a few small islands remained above the waves. Today we see what was once the floor of a tropical ocean. The evidence is limestone cliffs. Limestone is formed from the remains of shells and other marine organisms.
Look at this, guys. We have these prominent shell beds. Each one marks the old sea floor. They're stacked up one on top of the other. This rock was formed far from land. If you scrape a little bit off, like this, tiny little grains of sand.
The father of geological research in New Zealand, Alexander Mackay, first discovered this site in 1880. The rock contains immaculate ancient whale fossils. Professor Ewan Fordyce from New Zealand's University of Otago has been studying these fossils for over 30 years, gathering clues to throw fresh light on whale evolution. When marine animals die, they fall to the sea floor, where they are scavenged and disappear.
This is the mother line.
But on occasion, some are buried beneath the surface, eventually turning to stone.
Bit of shelby there, guys. Aha. This is what we really want. It looks like bone. There's some there and here. I'll bet these are jawbones, actually. It's got the characteristic oval shape and looks like the other jawbones right next to it. So this is what we want.
So how much rock are we going to have to take off?
Half a cubic metre, not much.
Unlike most limestone, the bedrock in South Canterbury wasn't buried deep in the ground and compressed. It's so soft that Ewan has developed a rapid method of excavation. Cutting into the rock with a chainsaw. To make sure he doesn't damage it, Ewan leaves plenty of room around the fossil. Very occasionally, entire skeletons are found, but on this occasion, as the rock is cut away, only small pieces of skull are revealed.
Yeah, that looks good. We can see bits of bone there. Yeah, up there. That's great.
The fossil tells a story.
We know that modern whales, when they die, blow up with gas a bit and bob around in the water, and they are gradually scavenged by sharks and the like. But if they're bobbing around for long enough and decomposing, bits of them fall off onto the bottom while the rest of the body drifts away elsewhere. And that's my guess with this specimen.
An old car bonnet makes a perfect sledge to drag the heavy rock onto the trailer. After After 25 million years, the whale skull departs on another journey. Ewan's laboratory is testament to a lifetime of research.
Hi Sophie. Let's have a look at that ear bone that you've turned up. My favourite bone. There was one bone that we could get from a fossil whale to actually say what the species is and how it lived and how big it was, and this is it. And it's species specific. This ear bone's from a type of whale called Tokarahia, and there are several species. One of them lived around 26 million years, at the time when New Zealand was largely flooded and underwater, about getting on to halfway back to the age of the dinosaurs.
The university's cellars are a fossil storeroom, allowing us to travel millions of years back in time.
The very earliest whales were toothed whales, and they would eat hard prey, fish, penguins, and the like. This animal in front of us is actually a baleen whale. It didn't really have any significant teeth in life, and it would have taken mouthfuls of water and taken food from the water. It ate little prey like krill, for example. And it was a very successful lifestyle, helped the whales to get big in terms of their evolutionary history. The biggest animals eating the littlest food.
This whale lived around 25 million years ago. New Zealand's oceans were teeming with life at that time. It was a perfect environment for giant predators.
So yeah, a bit of an insight into how fossils are collected and the whole process. And yeah, very nice. So, so now I'm going to talk about. Whoops, no, I'm not. You say it. And wait for that to go. But it's Island Cliff in Tokarahi. So it's a site that a lot of specimens have been extracted from. And so yeah, we've got Duntroon up the top, and it's the blue dot. This Island Cliff. You can kind of see why it has that name. It's sort of island-like, this big island of limestone. And at Island Cliff, one of the significant fossils is a fossil shark that you can also see at Otago Museum, and this is a bit of it that's in the Geology Museum at the University of Otago. Yeah, and it just one of the most complete ones they've found in terms of the amount of teeth and the amount of vertebrae, because sharks are cartilaginous, so they don't really have any other bones that are preserving in the fossil record. And yeah, from the what's called the Waitaki limestone, the geological unit, and it is 1994 or 1995 was the time that it was collected. So yeah, a wee while ago, and yeah, but it's stunning. If you go and look at it in the museum, I recommend you do. And we have a reconstruction here of how big it was. So the bottom one is the normal great white shark, and up the top we have what it would have been like. So really, really quite big. And also at Island Cliff we have this is the Tokarahia specimen that we just saw on the video. This is them extracting it from Island Cliff. So you can see it's a huge, huge job. There was 6 in the team there. It took them a month to collect it, and a lot of chainsawing, a lot of scraping and digging. Yeah, and a huge, huge task. And it was collected in 1994. And it was prepared and is in eomyster seated. And again, the ear bones are quite critical. And they were telling this. Yeah, so Eomystacetid is an early baleen whale. Yes, and so named after Tokarahi Township, and the Koeroa is meaning the long jaw, because it just has this huge jaw, those two bones you can see on the left and right of it going up. And yeah, it's from the lower Waitaki limestone, so upper Duntroonian stage. And it's also known from the Hakataramea quarry. We just saw the Hakataramea, one of the Hakataramea ones. And yeah, this, the Kokoamu cliffs, so if you're on the way to Duntroon and you see these cliffs just before you get to Duntroon, that's where one of those was found as well. And this is a reconstruction of what it might have looked like. So you see this whale with quite a large jaw there. And now moving on to earthquakes. Or waipata, and it's not actually called earthquakes. Oh, it's called earthquakes. I'm not sure why, because it's probably more of a landslide than formed from an earthquake. But yeah, it's a stunning place to visit if you haven't been, because you can see the fossil whale bones in the rock excavated there. And so this is where it's located. So you see Duntroon there, and it's this. See if I can get this. No, anyway, it's this big stretch of cliffs all the way here, and then we're also going to be talking about Waipati Creek, which is sort of up here. And so a couple of papers have been published on animals that they found, or fossils they found from there. And one of them being Kairuku Grebneffi, so named after Andrew Grebneff, who sadly died quite suddenly. And it's quite a complete specimen. This particular specimen in the photo, this collection of bones, a lot of it is from that specimen, but some of it is also from other specimens as well, to give a sense of what it would have been like. And yeah, from another unit below the Otago limestone, it's green. It's green sand, so it's Kokoamu green sand. And it was a giant penguin. It was 1.2 meters tall, so it was quite large. And it's there's actually quite a lot of fossil penguins that have been found in the Waitaki region as well. And so there's at least 10 species. In fact, there's probably more. In the later Oligocene of various sizes, and it might suggest ecologically, or they could have been eating different types of food, or diving in different depths and so on. And so Kairuku is meaning, so Kai meaning food, and then sort of ruku to dive, so it's sort of diving for food. And this is a reconstruction again of what this would look like, and there's also a reconstruction of a Paleo Dolphin here, which we're going to talk about next. And that was also found in the same Waipati Creek. It's Waipatia Marawhenua, named after the creek it was found, and also the Marawhenua River, which is running the major river nearby. And it was again found in Otago limestone, Duntroonian stage. And you can see a cast of this specimen in the Vanished World Centre, and it's very, very nice to see in person, so I recommend you go and have a look at it. And it had 23 teeth in place, and I think 17 were loose when it was found, and some ear bones and some other limb bones as well. And you can also see, based on this skull structure, that it was an echolocator, so it was just sort of starting to evolve that clicking that dolphins do, that they can kind of detect prey and so on. So yeah, really, really important specimen. And this is again a reconstruction of what it may have looked like by Chris Gaskin. And now the Valley of the Whales. I wonder why it's called that, but yeah, so a lot of specimens found there. In the Ōamaru stream catchment, and again there's the location map for that one. And there they found a species of dolphin that was sort of what they call a basal dolphin, an early dolphin, It's one of the oldest reported, so the family, or the group is Platanistoid, Platanistoidae, and so on. And yeah, so fragments of ear bones were found, and so up the top, that's a fragment of a skull that was found, and then you have a bit of the jaw here with some teeth still in it, and then this is that all-important bone that Ewan talked about, the ear bone. Yeah, and so I guess close living relatives to this sort of thing, yeah, as you can see there, the river dolphin, so like the Ganges river dolphin and that kind of thing. And yeah, Kokoamu green sand, and found in the sort of Duntroon stage again. And yeah, so I guess that's sort of why I think it's a paleontologist paradise. There's many sites in the Geopark that have yielded some spectacular fossils, and this is just a few of them. And there are far more to discover if you do the Vanished World Trail. And yeah, world renowned for that late Eocene, the diatoms, the diatomite, and the Jackson's Paddock site. It's one of the most important places of the world for studying this fossil whale and dolphin evolution. I mean, these are just some of the whales and dolphins that have been found. There's far more, and so studying the evolution in the Southern Ocean as well. And yeah, one of the best places to study these Waitaki and Duntroon age rocks, as the names would suggest. So yeah, thanks very much to the following people, and thanks very much for listening. Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you, Henry. Fantastic. We do have some time for questions. Yes, Bob.
The whales, the dolphins and the penguins, temperate climate or cold waters?
I believe temperate climate. It's sort of the other fossils in the rocks that sort of tell us this sort of subtropical, maybe kind of more tend to be more that sort of temperature. Yeah.
How far up the Linden Creek are the studies done of the rocks? Are the rocks in the creek base or are they on the river bank?
I haven't actually been there, and I'm not sure. Of course, this was done quite a while ago, this sort of early 1900s, and I'm not sure that may well have changed by now. But yeah, so I'm not sure exactly. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you go.
Are scientists still wondering what they might have looked like?
For some of them, certainly. So that last one I showed, that dolphin, it's sort of a partial kind of skeleton, and it's really hard sometimes to piece together what it might have looked like. Yeah, so some of them, yeah.
So that really ancient slug that you showed that you discovered, is it still in existence?
Yes, it is. You can find it off rocky shores. Not that species, but yeah, those type of things. They're sort of a low tide, or just below the tide mark. Below tide mark, yeah, because they need sort of to be in the water at all times. But yeah, they're still around. You can still find those shield shells on the beach, especially in places like Cutting Beach or around Shag Point and things. Yeah.
So what was it that made you feel that this was the shell that you found was a unique, possibly utterly new?
Yeah, the characteristics of it, and the fact that sort of there's only really one other fossil of a shell of that particular type that had been found in this area, and it's a lot older, and so it just seemed to be a very kind of basal form to what we have now. So it didn't quite look like what we have now, so I've named it a new species.
Hi.
Hi.
You've shown us quite a lot of interesting localities. Can we visit them, and how do we get access to them?
Yes, you can visit some of them. So the earthquakes site, it's on the Vanished World Trail, and you can go and see that. And so the Elephant Rocks I showed at the start, you can see that as well. Some of them probably would have landowners that you would need to get in contact with, definitely, like the Waipati Creek and so on. But yeah, some of them.
If you have a look on the Geopark website, the ones that are publicly accessible, you will find and have some information as well.
And as a follow-up question, if we were to visit those places and find something, what would be the best thing to do with it?
Probably take a photograph and send it off to maybe, or show it to Vanished World, or send it to myself at GNS. We have a website, or an email rather, called paleo@gns.cri.nz, and you can send through any queries you might have, and we can tell you what it might be as well. Yeah.
In Taranaki, there's some karst, and it's got huge, I mean, ginormous scallop type shells.
Oh, yeah.
At Gore Bay, you've got ones about this size. Do we get anything like that down here, or is it just the little fellas that we get?
Yes. You do get some of those bigger, like this sort of size, maybe, in the some of the rocks, the green sands and the Waitaki limestone that we have around here. Yeah, not as perhaps common, but yeah, we do. Yep.
And when we were on Hamden Beach yesterday, that the mudstone is now being exposed, and it looks like you get leaf prints or little round things. That I'm wondering, are they twigs and things like that that are stuck in it, or?
I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look at that particular one. Could be other things like phosphate can make little sort of mineralization, kind of rounded nodule-y things in the rock as well. So yeah, just didn't see it, but yeah, could be. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your working hypothesis for the reason why the New Zealand time stages are out of sync with those elsewhere in the world?
It's probably because we have a lot of marine rocks throughout this, all these stages, and you can kind of study, I think, those have a lot more kind of age diagnostic things and smaller microorganisms that can evolve quite quickly, and so you can kind of narrow down these ages. And they've done other stuff as well with paleo magnetism and other things that all come together to build this as well. Yeah. Yep.
Are there some common thoughts about why things become extinct?
Could be various reasons. Yeah, so could be different selection pressures, or lots of different organisms eating the same thing, and one of them is better at it than the other. And yeah, there could be a natural disaster or some kind of global disaster, like dinosaurs and things. Yeah, the asteroid impact. And, well, yeah.
Another one.
Yeah.
Do you find much evidence of paleocast or preserved decayed deposits exposed in the limestones around the valley?
Yeah, it's quite well known for like paleocast in terms of like the elephant rocks, for example, just that characteristic things and sort of patterns and cliffs around in the limestone. Yeah, not aware of any caves like that around the region. But yeah.
So is it all marine based?
Which is the
all the shells and that, is it freshwater or
yes, marine. It's all marine. Yeah, I'll be showing, except for the plant from Shag Point. That particular one is from a terrestrial sandstone.
So what you've shown us that back millions of years ago, animals were a lot larger than what they are now. Like everything we've seen here, everything seems to have got smaller. The penguins, the dolphins, and the whales.
Penguins, yes. The whales, I would probably think, have actually grown a lot bigger. Like you see some of those, blue whale vertebrae, and they're huge, big things. And these are, just. So in a way, yes, definitely for some of the shells, they've shrunk for us. But yeah, some things have, some things haven't. Yeah, it's.
So the majority of those marine creatures, were they more cartilage than bone? Like a shark?
Yeah, shark, definitely. But the others, probably not. That'll have an actual skeleton of bone. Yeah. Like.
So those flippers will have.
Yes, they do. Yep, they have bones in them.
Marcus, don't tell me that photo's of you.
Yeah, it is. Yep, that's right. Looking very cold in the West Coast. Yep, indeed.
Henry, when you choose to remove remove the fossil, like in that video, how complicated is that process to get permission to remove it?
Usually it's okay. They're pretty supportive for us to get it out, like fossils out. Yeah.
Would I be able to say
Yeah,
something
you
on
can.
that? So I'm from the University of Otago Paleo department. Me and Henry did up to through masters together, but I'm a technician working under you today, preparing out those whales for the University of Otago. We've had relationships with farmers in this region for 40 years, so we get access to a lot of private property and get permission to take things out. But it requires a lot of back and forth, a lot of communication, and collecting something like a large whale is a lot of logistical effort, and it takes months to prepare once you bring it back to the lab as well. So it's quite a big, lengthy process, but it's all about being in communication with local landowners to get access in the first place. So yeah, it's been a long-standing project. And so if we collect something, in order to research it, it has to be in a public institution. So pretty much all the fossils that Henry's been talking about today are stored at the University of Otago's Geology Department Museum, which is a public museum, and all of the fossils on display at Otago Museum are actually on loan from the Geology Department to the museum for display, because actually they have a bigger museum space than us. But it's a public collection, so it is for the country's enjoyment and use. And we explain this to farmers and such, and most of them are very happy with us and how to collect them. So it's a public resource for the country. Yes.
So you communicate with the landowner. Do you also have to communicate with the EU?
Yes, should be. Yep, should be. I think. But yeah, again, not sure about this area in particular. Yeah.
We do have communications with iwi, especially when we're describing new species. We ask the iwi if they have any ideas about the names that we might want to use to describe that animal, like kaifekia, kaitiki, for example. But at least earlier on, about 40 years ago when UN started, it wasn't necessarily standard practice back in the day, but it's become more part of the process nowadays, which is good.
Awesome. Any more questions? Great. Well, we have a few minutes, so I'm sure Henry will stick around for a bit. We thank you all for coming. Before we all head home, I just wanted to let you know we've got our next talk coming up in about 4 weeks' time. This time it's Amber from Oceana Gold in Macraes talking about the gold rush history at Macraes and the gold bearing rock and the geology around that. So if you're interested in, feel free to come as well. And I will hand over to our chair, Hannah.
Good evening, and what a popular man you are. How fabulous to have standing room only for your presentation. This has been marvellous. It's always lovely to go on a journey with someone, and particularly when that journey is a personal journey and starts at a very young age. And so I think we can all relate to times when we've been frolicking around for things and made wonderful discoveries. And for that to actually create your life's passion and your work is a tremendous story, and thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you too for bringing to life more of the stories of the geology of this district, and also giving us a nice broad context for those stories, because of course this land is connected to South Otago and other areas, and we just have our geology here, so it's a continuum, and as I understand it, we went up and down, and in fact we do have plant fossils, at least we have plant matter at Napara, where you can see the black coal, which was land above the sea, or at least it was mangrove swamp, so it was close to the top, and then obviously got submerged again with more limestone over the top. I have to say that my daughter was here from the UK recently, and one of the highlights of her month here in Waitaki was going around the Geopark and going to earthquakes and seeing how a fossil can be seen and existed all those years ago. Somehow it really evoked that sense of time passing and antiquity, and then to put it in context with going to Duntroon and Vanished World and all that work that's gone on over so many years, and the dedication of the Vanished World team to the ongoing storytelling again of our environment. So thank you very much for drawing that all together for us, and on behalf of the Geopark, have a little morsel or two. Safe travels.
Brilliant.